¿Cómo quieres que no te discuta tantas cosas de amor? Oye, si de repente te digo vente y tú no vienes, que no, que no. Vente, oye negra buena, vente. Vente negra, vente pa' mi continente. A mí lo mismo me dan 40 que 20, por eso digo vente pa' que. Vente, oye negra buena, vente. Vente negra, vente pa' mi continente. Negrita buena, te digo vente pa' acá, oye.
All right, now for the fun part, where to go, where to stay, what to do in Cuba. First of all, where I stayed. I stayed at an Airbnb and I stayed with the host. Her name is Betsy, and I'll link her Airbnb in the description. And before I kind of carry on with the rest of this video, I have to give a shout out to Betsy because she is hands down the best Cuban Airbnb guest Airbnb host you're going to find. Quick little story, when I first got to Cuba, I'm talking about got in the airport, got a taxi, was driving to her house, I left my phone in the taxi cab. I guess because I was shooting and I was doing videos, it must have been sitting in my pocket, and you know the seating position that you're in, my phone must have just slipped out. But what saved me was Betsy. She could have easily have just said, you know, oh, lo siento, I'm sorry, pobrecito, and all that kind of stuff, and then that would have been the end of it. She doesn't know me. I'm not even there a day in her house. Why would she go out of the way to help me? But she did. She got on the phone, she started calling up her friends. Luckily, somehow when I was videotaping, I was able to capture like a number in the windshield. And then she used that to figure out what taxi agency that I drove with. She got in touch with somebody there, and long story short, I got my phone back the next day. So I can't thank Betsy enough. And that's just one of the many reasons why I would recommend staying with Betsy. The second thing is her home is just so inviting and welcoming. As soon as we got there, you know, she introduced us to her husband, her kids, her grandmother, and she actually has a couple of different units in her Airbnb. So I think there was like maybe 4 or 5 units. Me and my cousin, we stayed in one. We met up with Alexis and King, who stayed in another unit. Irvin, who was also there before us, and that was at the time we came, right? The day after, we got another guest named James, and he kind of just joined the gang as soon as he came in as well. And you know, like I said, the environment that was created at Betsy's place was just, you know, the greatest thing ever. Actually, the day after we got there, it was Alexis's birthday. And so Betsy thought it would be a great idea to buy a whole bunch of food and to actually throw a birthday party for Alexis in her house. And Alexis had only been there 2 days and hadn't known her before that either. So this just goes to show, you know, how warm and inviting Betsy's place is. And I know I'm kind of rambling on and all, but you know, it's part of the way that we actually met and became so cool and close with all the people in the house. During the birthday party, Alexis actually invited some other friends that they had met the night before in Cuba. That's actually how we met Lindsay and how we met Haley. And this all happened because we stayed at Betsy's house, who is just the most welcoming and inviting person in Cuba that I met. So can't say enough about her. Enough talking about that though. We're gonna go on into the segment of the video where we talk about exactly where to go in Cuba. First of all, Betsy's place was centrally located in Havana, which is another good reason to stay there. So we were able to walk to many places. For breakfast, we would go to this place called Dandy's, which is pretty awesome. And then just walking around in Havana Central in general is just a cool place, you know. We got to see the Capitol building, El Malecón, I think it's called, which is like this long highway right against the water is right there. There were a ton of taxis that you can just take around the whole town and see everything. And you could probably walk, I would say, Central Havana and kind of see all of the highlights and the landmarks, probably within a day or two, pretty easily. So I would say just walking around Central Havana, right next to Dandy's actually, there's this really cool little pellet gun place, so you can check that out. And just walking around, shopping, seeing people, weird statue people that are doing things, shopping, the cigars, all of that right there in Havana Central, you can do a lot. Okay, so while you're in Central Havana, yes, you can walk to a lot of places, but I just want to quickly go over some other options for transportation that you have while in Havana. Another economical option is the hop on, hop off bus, which is really cool because the buses have a network of stops, right? And they stop at a number of major landmarks in Havana. You pay $10 and you can hop on and hop off the bus all day. So that's a quick way, great way, economical way. If you don't feel like walking around the city, just pay $10, get a hop on, hop off bus ticket, and then you can just go around the city that way. Another option you have, obviously, is just your traditional taxis. So there are generally two types of taxis. You have your normal traditional taxis, and then you have your classic taxi. So you have the classic taxis obviously cost a little bit more because it's not just a ride somewhere, it's a ride in style. You have a vintage 1950s or 40s, whatever vehicle driving you around. So those cost a little bit more than some of the other traditional taxis, which might be a Lada or something like that. You also have horse-drawn buggies and tuk-tuks that you could also take. And those, obviously, the prices will vary. I didn't take any of those, so I can't quite give you some numbers. I would say for a traditional taxi, probably expect to pay between $8 to $10 an hour. So one thing that you could do actually, and James actually did this, which was really smart. He paid $100 or $80 or something like that for a taxi to pretty much take him everywhere he wanted to go for the entire day. So it was pretty much 8 hours that he paid for, and the taxi took him to all these cool places, and so he was able to kind of see all of Havana without walking around wasting time just by doing that. So that's another option that you have. Now, there are a few places that you're gonna wanna get a taxi to go to. So for instance, one of the places that we loved was, let me get the name right, it was Castillo de los Reyes del Morro. I know it's a long name. I probably butchered that too. But this place is pretty awesome. It's obviously a castle or a fort that was built a long time ago. And the viewpoint that you have from this fort is amazing. You can see the entire Havana and the water in front of Malecón, which is pretty awesome. You could also see the Christ of Havana statue from there as well, which is cool. So I would definitely recommend taking a taxi out there. There are also other places that unfortunately I didn't get to go to that I also recommend you check out. One of them is Fusterlandia, which is like this area where there's tons of ceramic tiles and art and structures that are just built out of ceramic tiles. James, I know I mentioned James a lot. James went, he took a lot of pictures of it, he showed me later. And there are some other places just on the outskirts of Havana that you might want to take a taxi to get to. So yeah, you can walk to a lot of places. For instance, the Capitol building, Central Havana, Old Havana, the theaters, a lot of museums and cathedrals you can also walk to if you're in Central Havana. But there are some things on the outskirts that getting a taxi or a horse-drawn buggy or a tuk-tuk or something like that might be worthwhile. The most fun thing I think I did while in Cuba though was actually take a trip to a tobacco farm. So there's a tobacco farm in Viñales, which is about 2 hours or so outside of Cuba. And I have to thank Haley and Lindsay actually for this, because they actually had set up a car, a taxi to drive out there, to stay out there for the 4 or 5 hours they're gonna do the tour and then drive them back. And so we pretty much just hitched a ride with them and ended up going along. But you can easily online go and find out how much it would cost to do like a tobacco farm tour. And as far as setting one up, really all you would have to do is find any general taxi person around Havana Central, let them know this is what you want to do, this is when you want to do it, and they'll work with you to kind of set up a time to pick you up, drive out there. They'll sit out there the whole 5-6 hours with you and drive all the way back. And I think for us, we paid right around $150 for the whole entire day. So it was like for an 8-hour day taxi, we paid about $150 and we split that 4 ways between all of us to do that trip. But then again, like I said, but Viñales is just an amazing place. So you first arrive there, and we actually first did some cave diving, not cave diving, like a cave tour. I didn't really get much video of that. I got a few pictures, but I didn't want to bring my camera equipment down there in the cave. But then right after that, we had lunch at this really cool little hut on a mountain. Then we took the taxi about 5 minutes down the road to where we met up with the guys who were going to give the horseback riding tour through the tobacco farm. And so you go through the tobacco farm, and then you get into this actual, like, I don't want to call it a warehouse, if you will, but it's kind of what it is. It's actually where the people sit, and they show you exactly what the process is of creating an authentic Cuban cigar. And it's actually quite intriguing. They actually informed us that a lot of the process involves a portion where we have to separate the leaves into, I think it was 17 different categories, right? And then once you have your 17 different categories, which represent 17 different levels of quality in a Cuban cigar, you string up these one by one, and then you hang them to dry, and then after a certain amount of period, you know, you move that rung up to the next rung, and it goes higher and higher, and then another rung gets laid out. And actually a lot of this is done by women in Cuba. And the reason for that is they feel that the woman is actually the best suited for the job because of their patience. Because you have to be so patient in selecting each leaf, taking each leaf one by one and stringing it up. And so that was a cool little interesting fact that we learned. And we had a very informative tour guide in Viñales who kind of just explained everything to us and how to do that. All right, so if you're a beach person, probably the most famous beach, probably the #1 beach rated in Cuba, is this beach called Veredado Beach. Now, unfortunately, we did not have time to go to this beach. One of our other housemates, James, he actually went, and he said it was amazing. It was worth all the stars that people were giving it on Google. So I didn't go there personally, but I would recommend checking it out if you can. Personally, I went to Playa del Este, which is about 30 minutes outside of Cuba. I'm sorry, which is about 30 minutes outside of Havana. And Playa del Este is an amazing beach. It wasn't crowded at all. The water was crystal blue. Sand was perfect. Nice place to hang out. So if you're a beach person, I recommend hitting up Playa del Este for a quick 30-minute ride outside of Havana. But if you have some time and you want to go to maybe a more highly rated beach, then checking out Veredado Beach, which is about an hour and a half outside of Havana, is probably a good option too. All right, so let's talk about food. There are so many good food spots to hit up in Havana. Probably the best spot that we went to was this place called LaGuardia. And it was, again, walking distance from Betsy's. And what's awesome about this place is you have this rooftop balcony where you can kind of hang out and chill. And it actually at night turns into somewhat of a lounge / club. And it's a really beautiful environment, scenery. You get to see all of Havana from like this rooftop view. And the food there is amazing. It's a bit expensive for food in Cuba, but still not expensive if you're used to eating out, you know, in the States. I believe you could say a plate would be between $15 and $20, which again, it's not that bad. It's just like, say, going out to, I don't know, Cheesecake Factory, if you're familiar with that. But LaGuardia is an amazing place. I couldn't recommend it enough, and I think it's like rated #1 restaurant in Havana as well. There are other quick, cheap eats that you can hit up too. If you just walk around, you'll see a lot of cool places. Again, Danny's, I think I mentioned that before. That's a really cool spot nearby Havana Central as well. And right next to Danny's, you have the little Pellet gun place as well, which is pretty awesome. So I would say we also got lucky in the food department because Betsy would cook occasionally. So yeah, a home cooked meal at Betsy's is another great option. All right, so let's talk about the nightlife in Havana. So the nightlife in Havana is actually pretty lit. If you're looking for a quick free option, a lot of the locals like to hang out at night right on El Malecón actually. You go out there, some people might be bringing out some music like on a boombox, but generally people are kind of just hanging and chilling all night right along the seawall there on El Malecón. So that's a cool option if you just want to go and hang out, just get some fresh air, you just don't want to be inside and you want to just be around people. That's a great option. One of the things that we did was we went to this place called Fabrica. And I'm gonna try my best to describe Fabrica. It's kind of like an art gallery and a club attached to one another. So you get in, right? And right as soon as you get in, there's like a little bar, there's people making drinks and things like that. You can grab one and then you can walk through the art gallery. And then as you're walking through the art gallery and you start getting towards the end, you get to this club area where they're having live music and they're actually playing a lot of American hits actually. And Fabrica was honestly one of I think our favorite spot to hit at night. And really Fabrica is one of the cooler places that we went to. We didn't check out many other clubs or anything like that. Fabrica just had a nice vibe. I would recommend going there. I'd probably go again if I were to go to Havana. So definitely check out Fabrica if you're into the whole nightlife thing. And that's really it. That is traveling to Cuba. At least that was my experience traveling to Cuba. I'm gonna try to link as many things in the description as possible. Try to throw links to places that we went to. Try to throw links to all of the restaurants. I'm gonna throw the link to Betsy's Airbnb. All of that in the description. Anyways, I hope this video was informative for you guys. I hope that you're gonna go to Cuba and you're gonna experience it and you're gonna love it. If there's other things that I missed maybe, or other things that you think people should know about going to Havana, go ahead, put them in the comments, let me know. If you have any questions, you want further clarification on something, I'll try to do that as well if you just let me know in the comments. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one.